Hey everyone, so this mini course about quality assurance software testing and the way we create the task cases, reports, doing the testing whole process with lots of great examples. My name is Alex Kara, so let's get started. The first lesson is going to be about how to create the manual QA test scenarios, tools, and best practices. Before I start explaining you this, let's get started from the very beginning, and I'm gonna talk right now about the testing process with the example based on Amazon company, this well-known company. So the first thing, let's talk about super important things. Okay, the first thing is a company. The second thing is the product. The company owns the product, all products. Let's talk about an example, right? Amazon is a huge technology company. This guy has an online store. This online store has the IT department. They have own developers and QAs, software testers, who are doing the development and testing. Besides the developers and QA engineers, there are other roles, but those are the two main roles actually. So this product, this online store that they have, is available through the mobile app or through the website, and this website is supported through different browsers and operating systems such as Chrome or Internet Explorer or Firefox, Opera. There are a bunch of other less known browsers actually. But imagine that this browsers also needs to be supported through mobile app browsers and different screens, resolutions. Same for the mobile application, right? It's also available through Android, iOS, for iPhones, for Samsung Pixel, and bunch of other different devices actually, right? So every time this company make an update for this product, right? Whenever this happens, they have to run the whole bunch of scenarios they have. Why? Because whenever they do that change, there is a huge chances of having that product impacted, right? So there is a very high chances when they change one piece, it may impact the other pieces. So it's gonna break those whole system. So for this reason, the company Amazon have to run the whole, we call it regression, the whole test cases, like thousands, maybe even more scenarios they have for the entire product. Okay, and for supporting different operating systems, screen resolutions, browsers, etc., it's a huge piece of work. That's why we have software testing, that's why we are doing our testing, and that's why it is important. Besides that, the Amazon, for example, they have very complex system. They've been in a play in a game for like for years already, and the system is so big. It means whenever they do one change, it may impact other things, so it break something for sure. That's why we as quality assurance engineers, we have to test really thoroughly. So being said that, right, also consider the fact that we also doing the testing and development in a cycles, in a timelines. So every month or every 2 weeks, the company does that update or does some change, or maybe they need to follow some government regulations, maybe they just want to add some functionality, change or delete functionality. Whenever they change something, like I told you, like I said before, they're gonna break something for sure. There is very high percentage of that. So the the IT department, especially quality assurance engineers, we are running the whole regression. I said this word before. It's a term, regression, right? The whole scope of test cases in order to make sure there is no impact. Okay, so there are 2 weeks or months rates from the beginning to the end. Our job is to test this new functionality that's been introduced by developers, plus test the whole thing to make sure there is no impact. So this is standard process for us quality assurance engineers for big companies like Amazon. There are also companies that are not that big, like startups. So for that companies, we wouldn't need to do that much of testing. We would more be focusing on functionality that's been introduced by developers. However, like over the time, the startup is also getting bigger and bigger. That's why it is important to create a really good scenarios, add them to this regression, and overall, let me explain you what is the task case scenario, because I started talking about this term more and more, but maybe it's a bit confusing. So scenario, task case scenario, it's like a set of steps. For example, let me give you also an example with Amazon. Open the login or sign in page on Amazon through the browser, then type the login, type the password for existing user, and click login. So if you were able to sign in, to log in, then the task case passed, right? So the standard task case scenario will have this simple steps and expected results. So the first step is open the browser, second type login, third type password, number 4 step is click sign in, and expected result, you see the dashboard, right? So if something happens while you executing this scenario, for example, instead of dashboard, that by the end of scenario you're seeing the error that user were not able to authenticate, for example, then you want to double check that again, you want to check something more, but by the end of the day, if you're sure there is a problem, what you really want to do, you want to create a report, a bug report. This is another like artifact. So the task case scenario is testing artifact. There is another artifact called bug report, like an issue or defect report. That's all synonyms. So there are two main things, main artifacts: test scenario and bug report. Okay, note it down. Okay, so the task case scenario and bug report, those things goes together, but what do we call task set? It's just a set of these task case scenarios, okay? So we very often use this task set or task suite. It means just a set, a group of test case scenarios, or test scenarios. You see, there are like a bunch of different terms we've been using for quality assurance, but it's very simple. Scenario is a simple, document or artifact with instructions what to do and what is expected result. And bug report or defect report is just a description of exact problem, okay, with the steps to reproduce, some details, some title, and things like that. Okay, but everything starts from the product. Remember that, from the product, and products ideally should have some requirements, specifications, documentation. It's all synonyms. So some kind of explanation how the product supposed to work and what is expected in which case, in which more like customer scenarios. Okay, so ideally company would have that, especially like huge Amazon companies, they would have that. But a lot of companies, in my experience, most of the companies where I work did not have the requirements. At least they didn't have clear requirements, which is normal. And keep that in mind. But ideally, you want to have requirements, you want to have some kind of explanation. At least you want to have a person that can explain you what to expect in which kind of scenario. So requirements, that is the fundamental that you can use in order to start creating your test scenarios. Okay, so if you don't have test scenarios, you want to create those scenarios. Keep that in mind. Everything starts from the requirements. So based on that requirements, you go ahead and create the scenarios, and you end up having like 100, maybe then thousands of scenarios, or different scenarios you're gonna have. For example, sign in, sign out, create a user, delete a user, and etc. Okay, so what are the tools you're gonna use in the company, in the tech IT company like Amazon, for example, or Google or any other companies, in order to be able to create that test case scenarios or bug reports, etc., etc. So actually, companies would use different tools for creating the bug and creating the test case or test case scenario or test set, test suite. However, very often they trying to use the same tool. For example, it's a very famous, like very well-known name for the tool called Jira, and that's a issue tracking system. Issue, it means like ticket. You can create a ticket, right? A report, or they call it, or we call it issue, right? So this issue could be a bug report. This issue could be maybe some requirements ticket. So you can create different types of tickets. And there is a very nice and great, my favorite tool called XRAY. It's a tool that you can add to this Jira tool, so that one of the type of the tickets, one of the type of the issue, gonna be test case. Another one, test case is the first one. Another one is a test set. So you can create one test set, it's gonna be a specific ticket, and then a test set is a group that you can you can use. You can create 5 test cases, you can create a 1 test set, and you can link those 5 test cases to one ticket, to one issue, this test set. So very easy, right? And you can also create bug report, and if you're going through that test case scenario and you see, for example, there is no dashboard, there is an error after you trying to do the sign in, then you create a report, you can link everything, so it's integrated system. It's one of the best tools. Also very famous tool called TestRail. TestRail also like integrated with Jira, with other issue tracking systems like Jira. So it's a very famous, commonly like very same as the XRAY. A lot of companies use that TestRail, but there are also other tools similar to these two in order to manage that test case, test in general, test cases and bug reports and etc. All these artifacts. Okay, but the whole process also, what I explained to you, also missing one important, step. It's executing the test case. So there is a report for bug reports. There is a test case, right? A task set with test cases, and there is a bug report. So what is missing between those two is the execution report. Okay, so first of all, right, we have a product. The company has a product. You work for that company, right? This product, let's say an online store for Amazon. That's perfect. Okay, so it has a lot of documentation, a lot of functionalities, pieces of functionalities. Each of these pieces is gonna have some, documentation. We call it requirements for specific functionality, how it's supposed to work, and we built scenarios for each of this functionality. So, for example, there are 6 main functionalities, 6 main functionalities, and for each functionality, we're gonna build maybe 100 scenarios. So for this one, for sign in, for the dashboard, for making an order, for delivering the order, for transactions, and for, payment system. 6 main functionalities, okay? For each of them, we're gonna have 100 scenarios and 6 sets. Similar to 6 functionality, we're gonna have 6 sets of scenarios, okay? So overall 600 scenarios. Then, okay, when the time comes, by the end of this timeline, let's say it's 2 weeks timeline, when the time comes, maybe within that, in the middle of this 2 weeks, right? Managers may ask QAs, hey guys, can you please execute regression, meaning all scenarios, in order to make sure there is no impact of that functionality, of this new changes. So you're gonna need to execute the whole thing in order to make sure there are no bugs, or there are some bugs that we're gonna need to fix as soon as possible. So we're gonna create the execution execution reports, so that managers and anyone else can actually see how many scenarios being executed, what scenarios being failed, what scenarios being executed maybe 2 times if needed, what devices being used for that, etc., etc. Some information about the way us quality assurance engineers did that execution for that 600 scenarios. And XRAY, for example, it allows to create a separate ticket. You're gonna link that test case scenarios tickets for that execution report, and then by the end you're gonna have like maybe one ticket with all the 600 scenarios, and you're gonna just follow the steps for each of the scenario, and will mark or change the status from to do to pass or fail. Okay, if that fails, then you go ahead and create the test report. So that's the chain, right? You have your requirements, you have your test case scenarios, you create executions, for each of the scenario you change the status to pass or failed. Okay, depending on if it passed or failed, you just go ahead and manually okay, open the website, type login, type password, click sign in. If everything good, then it's good. If it fails, then you go ahead and create the report. And by the end of the execution, you're gonna have that execution ticket that you can share with anyone in your department. Anyone can see, okay, so this regression took for you to execute maybe 2 days, and then being executed 600 test cases, 2 failed. This is the bug report, a ticket that QAs found, and this is the report for execution. This is the report for bug, or 5 reports for 5 different bugs. So that's the whole testing process. Hopefully you like it. Of course, there are way more information about how to use XRAY or how to use Jira, but the whole process is like that. Everything is professional, everything is trackable, everything you can share so others can see the progress, and you can have everything in your history. You can obviously, over the time, over the year, for example, year is 12 months, so you'll probably have some maybe 12 or 24 reports for executions, right? So during the year, because if you're gonna have timelines for 2 weeks, then you end up having 24 executions. If you have just 1 month timeline every month, then you have around 12 execution reports.